I mean, come on, it's the age-old tale. The band didn't think much of the song, and it became a massive hit. We've heard the story a million times, but this one's totally different. It's nuts. I mean, first of all, the song was written on a $16,000 instrument that only 3 people in the world could actually play. It was written about a place the singer had never been, and it's become the ultimate pop culture punchline. One of the biggest songs of the last 10 years, and it was released in the 80s, came from the singer flipping through a National Geographic, and it almost didn't make it onto the album. Get the real story straight from the legendary band, stories you've never heard, coming up next on Professor of Rock. Hey, music junkies, Professor of Rock, always here to celebrate the greatest artists and the greatest songs of all time. You know, if you remember counting down the top 40 hits with Casey Kasem, the American Top 40, every single week, you're going to dig this channel. It's really a throwback, a tribute to him. Make sure to subscribe below right now so that you know when our latest and greatest videos are coming out. And check us out on Patreon for even more content or interviews there. So I'm excited to bring you yet another episode from our series Revelations, my favorite. It's where featured artists reveal rare stories about their biggest songs, their biggest albums, insight you won't find anywhere else. I got to tell you, this one's a good one. This installment of Revelations, very fortunate to sit down with Toto member Steve Lukather and David Page, also Steve Porcaro, talk about their enduring 80s classic, Africa. I've had the honor of interviewing Steve Lukather and David Page many times. Got to tell you, in all the conversations we've had, you can definitely feel the respect and the admiration that they have for each other. It's a riot every time. Luke and Page, 2 of the nicest guys in the industry, and you can tell that, selling millions and millions of records hasn't gone to their heads at all. Maybe I should say 500 million records, since Lukather and David Page have worked on hundreds of albums from the mid-70s on. The members of Toto have had a very illustrious extracurricular career, indeed, working on Michael Jackson Thriller, also working with Paul McCartney, Pink Floyd, Eagles, Eddie Van Halen. They composed the score for the 1984 edition of Dune. So many. Within the band, Toto has had a slew of U.S. top 40 hits. We've covered a lot of them here. Hold the Line, 99. Rosanna, Make Believe, I Won't Hold You Back. I'll Be Over You Without Your Love, Pamela, just to name a few. And their 1982 album Toto 4 fittingly reached number 4 on the Billboard 200 chart. But among all these bragging rights, there's one song that has persisted more than any other. One that is instantaneously connected with Toto. It's Africa. Yeah, if you didn't know, Africa was and is kind of a big deal. Went to number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100. Also went to number 3 on the U.S. Cashbox chart. Went to number 5 on the U.S. AC chart. Internationally, it broke the top 10 in a number of countries. Number 8 in Belgium, number 7 in Austria, number 6 in Switzerland, number 5 in Australia and New Zealand, to number 4 in the Netherlands, number 3 in the UK, number 2 in Ireland, and it went to number 1 in Canada. Incidentally, in South Africa, it went to number 18. Should have done better. Here's Toto with the definitive story of Africa. Africa. Let's talk about that pop culture phenomenon. Tell me about how it came together.
We had most of the Toto 4 album done. And I got a new instrument called a GS1 from Yamaha. And it had these little kind of kalimba, Balinesian, gamelan kind of sounds in it. And we had a CS80 in my living room. My house had keyboards everywhere, and you could plug them in and record also.
We're using the synthesizer called a GS1. It was this Yamaha, it was a $16,000 digital instrument that you couldn't program. They only had 2 or 3 of these programmers for it. 4-screen. It was a very early application of FM synthesizers, which is what the DX7 wound up being. But this GS1 was in this other model of it, and it had amazing sounds and had this amazing characteristic. But this guy named Gary Leuenberger was his name, very dear friend of ours who was helping us programming stuff. He came in, and especially for Africa, we spent hours on tweaking those kalimba sounds. You know what I mean? Getting that sound just right. He helped us out doing a custom program. That's how in with Yamaha I was in those days too, that I was able to do that. No one, they didn't do custom programming for anybody. I just was that in with all those guys, and we really squeaked that out, and that was for Africa.
And I started playing this riff, and I started getting into this song and wrote this little chord structure and had a chorus. I had the chorus to it. And once I got my title, which was Africa, I realized, well, if I'm going to do this and it's going to be anything worth it, we can't just cut it regular. So I asked Jeff to compose a special loop that was integral to the part of it. It just wasn't an afterthought to make him part of the song, And I said, I want you to start the song with the loop.
Yeah.
And we'll add all this stuff to it one at a time. Almost like the Beatles were doing, and like Brian Wilson, who you talked about there, did, which is putting instruments on one at a time.
Yeah.
It was very experimental, very fun for us. You have some of this older school technology, Steve was saying before, about this collaborative effort where everybody's in the room and you're printing the echo, and we're kind of the last of the bands that saw the old school of making records on tape and utilizing how tape is, you know what I mean, and echo and all that stuff.
Well, also,
when
we did Africa, we were doing like tape loops, actual tape loops on microphone stands. Al Schmidt,
Beatles style,
legendary engineer, was working with us. And, we were doing like Lenny Castro, who's out with us now.
Yeah.
And Jeff would come up and find 8 bars of a loop, and then we'd start overdubbing to that. And it was really old school. Analog. You know what I mean?
Where you got tape.
How do we do this?
You guys have seen tape loops, real tape loops, right? Where you get just a pole and a pull. Tape is spinning around the room right here.
And then
Just like on a
if
big
you want it
loop.
longer, you have to move the microphone stand a little bit
we're
more.
not
Like
syncing up 2 machines. We're made of one of the
if we wanted
Africa.
instead of sampling things, we used to fly it in like wild. So you'd have to do it manually. Like like the background vocals would be like this ooze or something like that. You didn't want to do again. You put it on the 2-track, and you have to go one, bam, and anticipate it and hope that it catches up in time. That's how they did, and we did that because we heard George Martin did that with Sgt. Pepper's. They would sync it in and then edit the pieces together.
Otherwise, you had to do what we did on the first couple albums, was just sing every single chorus and triple every single chorus and do all that. And it's very time consuming. That's where budgets went, and that's what took so long with making real productive albums. That waiting for me. As I sit here and look at this table, though, and you like to go back and talk about the history and where things come from, I pay homage. We're standing on the shoulders of giants. I know people say that as a cliche, but we really are.
No, I mean, it all started with the Beatles for me, and then they're always in the room with whatever we do.
Absolutely.
They know it or not.
They made the initial loop, and once I put on the little keyboard, the CS80 with the horn sound and a guide vocal, he started hearing parts. And he picked up a guitar and started doing amazing things. Hungate did. And it just came, it was so organic and collaborative. That's a perfect example of Toto,
basically made the essence of the record in one day. And then the more keyboards, and then more guitars, and then we spent a lot of time doing the rest of it.
And what was great about that is because most of the rest of the record was done, and I think all we were working on was this song. It's like, so someone will get an idea, let's get Tim Schmidt from the Eagles to come in and sing this part. Or let's get Joe Porcaro on flapamba or bass marimba to play this part. Then we start calling in and getting the exotic percussion.
Emil Richards and all of his stuff,
One by one, guys start picking up their instruments. What's so great about Toto is their ability to self-arrange and self-produce these things, you know what I mean? No one tells him what part to play on that, or David Hungate what bass part to play, and it just kind of evolved while we were mixing our record, And it was one of those magical things, you can't say, hey, well, we masterminded this to be a big single and saw the future.
No, I didn't hear it, man. I was going like,
none of us did, really.
That didn't even make the record, right?
No, because it's such a mid-tempo, it's kind of an easygoing thing. We had all these other the Rosannas and these, big rockers on there. We thought, well, here's another little
It
extra.
was truly
cut,
a wild card song.
Yeah.
And then it ends up being the biggest song we've ever had. So what do we know?
Certainly.
I was never one to pick the singles,
Africa I remember very well because I remember, and I didn't even know this about Luke. Luke has come out about this too. I just remember the whole time with Africa thinking, this does not belong on this album. Mm-hmm. This should not be on this record. It was kind of the last thing we'd working on. We'd already been working on all, the whole thing. And my tune, we'd gone through all this stuff, Rosanna, all this stuff, and Africa was kind of this thing of David's. And I could tell David was way into it and really wanted to do it. And Jeff worked really hard on it. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Having said that, just because I didn't like the tune and because I didn't think it should be on the album doesn't mean I didn't kill myself on it. You know what I'm saying? We would really, like I said, again, just to finish up what I was saying about the guys, as hard as they could be on you working on their stuff, when it was my stuff, they all brought their A games. Yeah. And I never felt for a moment that Lukather was just trying to get through my tune so he could get to work on one of his tunes. Everybody always brought it.
Gave it everything.
Everyone always brought it.
You can tell that with all you guys' songs. I mean, they're so
what David would bring to my
meticulous.
songs.
Yeah.
What David would bring to my songs,
Yeah.
And I loved it because I brought a lot to, you know what I mean? I'd work hard on his tunes too.
Yeah.
So
you also were watching a documentary, right? As far as the lyrics go.
No, not so much. I was reading a lot of National Geographic at the time is what I was doing. I got a lot of stuff from poetically paraphrasing some of the things. And I had, read some books and stuff and was kind of romanticizing about going to Africa, which I'd never been.
Classic rock has sort of taken, it's crossed generations now.
Oh, yeah.
Like,
no question.
My younger kids know, my older kids do.
They all find it on their own.
You get the songs in video games and stuff like that.
Yeah.
The cross-pollinization of stuff.
Yeah.
It's on a cartoon show or something.
That's the other thing. A whole bunch of people, their first introduction into us is either Jimmy Fallon and Justin Timberlake.
I bless the rains down in Africa. Gonna taste it.
Or Family Guy, you know what I mean?
I love the show.
Yeah.
I'm a huge Seth MacFarlane fan, When he did Africa, I didn't know it was coming.
Yeah.
I was just watching the show, I go, Paige! I call him, put on TV!
That's
We
awesome.
love it.
we love it. You know what I mean?
know.
Luke watches all those shows in South Park.
Remember this song? Shit, baby. I love this song.
I remember I was watching this show. I didn't start watching it till it was in syndication. It was called Scrubs.
Yeah.
And I loved it. I thought it was
Scrubs,
hysterical. And one episode, you know what I mean? One episode, they open on his iPod. He's in the bathtub, and they open on his iPod, and it says Toto Africa on it.
Only one thing could make it better. Cranking up the Toto.
You know what I mean? I'm going, oh boy, what are we going to be the punchline for now? But it was he loved it. We loved it.
Jimmy Fallon's
How do you not laugh
That's
at that?
classic,
That was classic.
man.
I mean, I thought
Justin
when I
Timberlake.
got the sync request, I thought that what usually happens is, it's a walk on and they play 5 seconds of it. Dum,
Yeah.
dum, 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 dum. Ladies and gentlemen, Justin Timberlake and everything. And they kept coming back to it, and these guys have braces on, and they're
It's
like
hilarious.
It was hysterical.
They're sitting there singing it to each
we
other.
cracked up.
It's classic.
No,
man.
If you
no
cut
one-
back to NSYNC, but back when they were together, they were in Africa and they were all singing the song.
Yeah.
That song is like,
No one laughs about our stuff more than we do.
oh,
You know what I mean?
are you kidding me?
You guys probably seen that thing on YouTube where that huge choir is singing Africa?
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah, we played with them. Jazz, Perpetuum Jazz.
Yeah, they came on stage and
They
did it
came
with
on
us.
stage.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And then Andy McKee.
Yeah.
That's a
Really
freaking
talented guy.
amazing.
Well, that got me in touch with Andy McKee, which
Yeah.
I brought him in,
Yeah.
and then Lee Ritenour did this album called Six String Theory, and he came in. He was part of the band, one of the tracks, and he's a brilliant guitar player.
talent.
I heard that Africa was a drinking game in college or something like that. It's a certain lyric, and you had to pound a shot or something.
It was a drinking game when I wrote it. It was a drinking game when I wrote it.
Yeah, no, definitely. We were definitely a little tight. Could have been slightly altered at the time of the recording.
Yeah. And then the Weezer version hit #1, introduced to yet another generation.
Bless the rains down
What'd you think of that?
Really good.
There was a version of two weekend warriors at a pizza place.
Yes, I know those
Really?
guys. Yeah.
Guitar and bass, and it was like one of the coolest versions.
Yeah, they
we'd ever
did a
heard
great
of it.
job.
You know what I
with it.
mean?
Their vocal was really
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that guy
Salt
showed up at
Lake.
one of
We
our
just
gigs.
met that.
Yeah,
we just
yeah,
saw
in
him.
Utah, man.
We just
And that's
saw
one
him.
of the
He came to
most
the show.
watched YouTube
He was
videos.
really good.
Yeah. He was really sweet too.
A lot of kids found our music. Like we're
Yeah.
this multi-generational, fan base at this point. We
Yeah.
look out the audience. It's not just people our age. It's a lot of young people.
So everyone knows the lyrics in the chorus are "I bless the rains down in Africa," but apparently few of the backing singers sang the wrong lyrics and they never fixed it. They were singing "I'd catch the rays down in Africa." So if you listen closely with a great pair of headphones, you can slightly hear it, but it's just funny they've never fixed it. Try listening and see if you can hear it. Africa reached #1 on February 5th, 1983, and it stayed there for a solitary week. The 4 other songs that made it to the top 5 when Africa went to #1. At number 5 was "Shame on the Moon" by Bob Seger and the Silver Bullet Band. At number 4, "Baby Come to Me," a duet by, of course, Patty Austin and James Ingram. Number 3 was "Sexual Healing" by Marvin Gaye. And number 2, "Down Under" by Men at Work.
Shame on the moon needs to share, baby, come to me. Sexual healing, baby. And she said, "Do you come from a land down under?"
It's a great top 5, but I dare say, Africa with over 2 billion streams and counting, they've outpaced them all. Really, all of them put together. Just such a great song. What do you remember about this song and about Toto? Share your memories below. Let's have a great talk about what's your favorite use in pop culture. I love what Jimmy Fallon and Justin Timberlake did with it. Let's have some great memories talking about Africa. If you like this video, we do invite you to subscribe below. We'd love to have you. Until next time, 3 chords and the truth, my friends.